Hello guys, good morning all. I'm sorry for delay. There was like we were waiting for others to join. So in last class, wherein we covered on controlling the access on our environment, right? So this is what we covered in the last class. Okay. And couple of topics which I missed in the module one, we will cover that. Then we will move on. Okay. Before we get started, any questions, any doubts? Okay. Right. Let's move on. So now, first thing we'll look into the Azure Marketplace. So what is Azure Marketplace here? Right. So if you want to deploy any services in Azure, right, where you can search in Marketplace and you can choose the services and you can start deploying it. Okay. So if you go to your Azure portal, so here you can search for a marketplace. Or even you can search the services directly, or you can come to the marketplace where you can see what all the services available here. So here is a quick or most commonly used services available here, which you can choose and you can start deploying it. If at all, if you're looking on category wise, you can search it. Like if you're looking on a compute related services. Here you can see, right, Windows, Linux, and different flavor of virtual machine or the operating system is available here. If you're looking something on security or networking, storage, right, you can see the services. So this is where you can choose a service what you want to deploy in your environment. Okay. Or even you can search the services directly. Like I'm looking something on storage. I'm looking for a SQL. Or if I'm looking on a network. So you can search the services and you can deploy. Or even you can check in marketplace whatever the services available. IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. You can start choosing them and you can start deploying. So what are the ways you can manage your Azure? One way you can manage through the graphical user interface, right? So if you want to deploy something, let's take example, I want to deploy a virtual machine, a Windows machine with um, 2 CPU, 16 GB RAM, and I want this machine to be in a US region, right? So I can do it. So let me create one resource group first. So I'll say it's my mod one resource group. We will discuss more about the resource group in today's class. Okay. And any services you want to deploy, you can deploy it. Like I want to deploy a virtual machine, I will search here for virtual. You can see the virtual machine blade. Select the virtual machine blade and you can start creating it. Okay. So this is one way where you can manage your Azure infrastructure. So let's say this is my application one server. I don't require any availability zone. So this we will discuss when we go to the virtual machine topic. I'm just building one VM to showcase, right? So I go with 2 CPU, 16 GB RAM. So these are credentials to get inside this machine, logging inside this VM. There are still more configuration. For now, I'm going with the default settings. Let's wait for a few minutes to get this deployed. Okay. So this is one way where you can manage your services deploying it, right? So what are the other ways you can manage? Even you can manage via PowerShell. Means you can manage your Azure with a graphical user interface. Okay. Manage your Azure with graphical user interface using the browser. Also, you can manage with the command line. So there are two programming language what you can use to manage your Azure. Okay. So one is you can manage with your PowerShell. Okay. So let's take example, PowerShell, right? In that case, you can manage your Azure via PowerShell. Suppose if you don't know PowerShell, but you know shell command, even using your shell commands, you can manage your Azure. Okay. If you want to manage with PowerShell, you can manage from the PowerShell console, right? Windows PowerShell application. So you can see the PowerShell application available in Windows OS. Using that, you can connect to your Azure account and you can manage. Suppose you don't know PowerShell and you want to manage with shell command. In that case, you can download and install Azure CLI. This application is available Windows-based, Linux-based, as well as Mac. You can download, you can install, and you can manage via shell command. Okay. So these are the other two ways where you can manage your Azure. Any questions on this? Okay. So let me show you how to connect and work with PowerShell. So I have a PowerShell installed in my machine. Okay, it's the same way, right? So it's the same way. So how do you do in the browser? Let me log out here. So in browser, what we will do, we will type portal.azure.com, the URL. Then you type in your username and you type your password. Okay. Same way, you will be connecting from your PowerShell as well. So first thing, what you need to do, you should have your .NET. Okay. So you should have your latest .NET. Okay. So first thing, you should have your .NET. Anyways, by default, Windows 10 or Windows 8, whatever you use, will have a but it should have a latest version of .NET. Okay. And then what you need to do is you need to um, allow some policy, right? Execution policy. By default, what will happen in a Windows machine, the execution policy will be restricted. So this will block the remote commands. Okay. So in order to connect and manage your Azure with PowerShell from your local machine, so minimum you have to set, what is that? Restricted. Yeah. Remote signed or unrestricted, right? So minimum remote sign or unrestricted. Okay. So how do you do this? So open your PowerShell with command like with the administrator mode. Okay. Suppose if you don't have administrator permissions, just give me 1 minute. I'll just change the color. So if you don't have admin permission, still you can do it. So this is one-time activity. Run the command set hyphen execution policy. Okay. So at least you give remote site. I think so it's already done in my system. So you can run the command get hyphen execution policy. See, mine is unrestricted. Suppose if it is restricted, you should change it to remote sign minimum or unrestricted. Okay, it's always good that you keep it on remote sign. So this is one time. So you can set this and you can leave. Suppose if you don't have admin access, what you can do, you can limit to your account, right? So you can run a, you can add a switch called scope to current user. So with this, what will happen? Only to this user account, this will be allowed. Okay. So this is how you can allow the execution policy on your computer. Then what will happen is this PowerShell is a command line tool, an updated version of your command prompt. So in PowerShell, what will happen? There is something called as a modules. There's something with the packages, right? So if you want to manage your Azure, what you need to do? You need to download and install the Azure modules. So you need to download the commandlets and you need to install it. Same way, any other services you want to manage, like Azure Active Directory or Office 365, like Exchange Online. Okay. So you have to download and install each module. Only then you will be having that particular service commandlets. Okay. So now, if you want to install the Azure modules, run the command install -modules. So here I'll say Azure. So once I do this, what it will do? It will connect to the Microsoft PowerShell gallery over the internet, and it will download the commandlets or the modules, and it will install here. Okay. Just say yes to all. So now it will start downloading it and it will install it. So this is how you have to install the module. So this is one time activity. Once this is done, we are good. Like in your computer, how the browsers are loaded. And then you will type your connect URL, credentials, done, right? So same thing. So now this is done. So next step, what we are going to do is we need to connect. Whenever you want to manage your infrastructure, you need to connect to your Azure account. So run the command connect hyphen Azure. Connect hyphen AC is the command line. So once you type in here, connect hyphen AC account, okay, and it will prompt you for credentials, and you can type in your credential here. Okay, let me copy paste my username and password. So it is completed. Now you can see I have connected to my account. So this is how wherein you will be connecting to your Azure account, and from here you can start managing it. Okay. So whatever you want. So get hyphen AZ resources. So these many resources are running in my environment. So if you want to deploy a VM or a storage or network, any services you want to manage in your Azure, you can manage with this console as well. Yeah. Get -az resource group. Right? So there are two resource groups here. If you want to deploy a new resource group, you can do that. Create az resource is new is resource group name resource group 2 location West US. Okay, so now you can see with the command line I have creating one resource group. See, it's great. We check now there are three resource groups. So earlier only two was right. So this was earlier and now the three. So this is one way where you can manage your Azure using the PowerShell command line tool. Any questions on this? Okay, Srinivas, we don't have your contact details. Can you drop your email ID and phone number on the chat? All right, thank you. Fine. So let's move to the next one is the Azure CLI. So now let's take a scenario. So I'm basically a Linux admin, right? So Linux admin is the one who will be using the shell commands. I don't know PowerShell. I want to manage Azure with the command line. So what you can do is you can download and install the Azure CLI. Okay, so this link I'll put it in the chat box. Please note it down. Okay, Azure CLI. So this is just a small package you can download and install on your Windows and Linux box. Okay, you get here, you can click and you can install it. So I guess even I have installed it. Let's check. Okay, so this I've already downloaded and installed it. Close this. Let's see. I need to install a few more packages here. Okay, that's okay. We don't want to spend too much time here. Okay, so the same way like how we did the PowerShell. So once you install this application, right? So then you connect your Azure account by using AZ space login and you type in your credentials. So you'll get inside that and you can manage your Azure with the shell commands as well. Okay, so these are the ways where you can manage your Azure. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll move to the next topic. All right, so with this, we covered the module one, right? So let's move to the module two. In this, today we will cover the Azure Resource Manager. So what is Azure Resource Manager here, right? So now, if you have observed few minutes back, I just created a virtual machine, right? Or even using the PowerShell, I've created the resource group. So now I'm managing the Azure infrastructure, right? So it's me on the front end. Okay. It's me on a front end using my laptop. What I'm doing, I'm instructing to create or manage the Azure resource, right? So on a back end, Microsoft Cloud has their compute, storage, network. Okay. So using their physical infrastructure, a VM is deployed, or you're creating something else, database, SQL database, or any other services. So now how this is happening on a back. So there is a management layer between you and the physical infrastructure. So that is what is the resource manager. Okay. So in this resource manager is the one is a intermediate layer between the what do you say the administrator and the backend physical infrastructure. So whatever you want to deploy or manage, right? So through the graphical user interface or through the command line. Okay. So you will be interacting through the resource manager. Okay. So we'll try to understand what all the resource manager will do here. Okay. The Azure Resource Manager provides you the consistent management layer to manage your services in the Azure. Okay. So this will help you to enable you to work with the resources in your solution as a group. Means any services you want to deploy, it will be deployed under the resource group. Okay. So you can see if you're managing with Azure portal or through any command line or any other application, right? So the Azure Resource Manager is the intermediate layer between you and the infrastructure to create and manage your services or resources in Azure. Okay. So the services like compute, web application, storage, or your SQL database, right? So anything where you will be controlling via your resource manager. So in between, it is connected with your Azure Active Directory, right? So this yesterday, like last class, we covered a brief, which is your identity and access management platform, right? So you type in your username and password. So that is validated on your Azure AD. Okay. With whatever the permissions you have in your infrastructure or on the subscription or on the group or resource level, you can control and manage your services accordingly. Okay. So you can deploy any services, you can update or you can delete any services in a using this resource manager. Okay. This provides the security, right? So security in the sense, whatever the permissions you have. Now you have your subscription, you have your resource groups. Under resource groups, you have your services. or the resources, whatever. Okay. So now if I have permission to the entire subscription or on a resource group or on a resource, so your access or the security part is controlled or taken care by the resource manager. And also it will provide the auditing. All right. So now whatever I do, it will track under the audit logs. And also there is something called as a tagging feature. So what is tagging feature here? Where you can tag the resources, right? So whenever you try to deploy anything, like I'll try to deploy a storage. Okay. Let's say this is my prod one app storage. Okay. So at last we have something called as a tag. So here you are using the tagging feature. So I'll say this has been created based on the ticket number. And this is created for the cost center. Okay. So this is where you can tag your resources. So this is taken care by the resource manager. Okay. And this chooses the tools and API that works best for you. Okay. Means whenever you try to deploy the backend tools and API, that will be taken care and it's going to deploy and manage the services on a back. Yeah. Any questions on resource manager? All right. Let's move to the next slide. Okay. There are a few terminologies which we need to understand, right? So you might have been heard, I was saying source. What is a resource here? What is a resource group here, right? How the things are managed on a backend. We'll try to understand. So I used to say a resource. So what is a resource here? So in simple way, the services running in Azure is called as a resource. Now, we just deployed a virtual machine, right? So a virtual machine has a compute. And this virtual machine, and I was trying to create a storage account. And to deploy this virtual machine, you will be deploying the virtual network, right? So these are all called a service, or even it is called as a resources. Okay, resources or service is called as the same. So what is a resource? It's a simple single service instance in Microsoft Azure. So what will happen when I just created a virtual machine, right? So this virtual machine has a three main parts: the compute, storage, and network, right? So each is a service, not the entire VM is one single service. You can check this here. If I go to my resource group, okay, so you can see I created a single virtual machine. Okay, so this is the virtual machine, and this is the hard disk of this VM, and this is the network card of this VM. So these are the three main services will be created. But here we have deployed a virtual machine service, but again, the virtual machine has a three different smaller pieces of services. Okay, so this is a compute service, this is a disk, this is a network card, and this is a virtual network, and this is a public IP, this is a network security. So these are called as a resources. Okay, single service resource. Okay, what is a resource group here? So resource group is just a logical container here. Okay, so now you can see mod1rg, right? This is a resource group. Okay, this is not a physical one, it's just a logical one. So these are all physical resource. So where it will be lying on the hardware. So here also create one more resource group too. So which is not having any services, right? So this is a logical one. Okay. So basically why we create a resource group is to segregate and keep your services. So for example, this is how your architecture will look, right? So you have your tenant. Under your tenant, you will see the subscriptions. You can have one or more than one subscription. Subscription is your billing account that calls subscription 1, subscription 2, so on. So now you can create a subscription based on your requirement. Like I want to have a subscription based on the project or environment, like production separate environment, production separate subscription, and test separate, development separate, or project wise. So project A, I want to have a separate billing account. Project B, I want to have a separate billing account, or location wise also. For US, I want to have a separate billing account. For India, I should have a separate billing account. It's up to you. How do you want to create it? Otherwise, if you create your subscription and if you want to create your resource group, right? So resource group is the next layer. So even you can create your resource group based on your projects or based on your environment or based on your location or whatever is your required. How do you want to segregate and keep your resource? For example, I want to keep this in a project wise. So this is my project 1, project 2, project 3. However you want, you can do. Means this will help you to segregate and keep your resources, mainly like to control the permissions as well. Let's take example. I want project 1 members to have permission to manage the project 1 resource group and anything under that. Right. So likewise, you can control the permissions as well. So under this, your resources will come. So this is your hierarchy. Okay. So now we will create the resource group based on your design and requirement. So nothing much, like even you can create one resource group and keep everything under one single group. That's also okay. But main thing, if you want to delegate a permissions to manage your infrastructure, so in that case, this resource group will also help. And this group will help you like segregating and keeping so that you can easily understand and manage your services. Okay. A resource group is just a logical grouping for your resources. So if you want to deploy any resource, you should have a resource group. And again, resource group is not chargeable. All right. Next thing is the Azure Resource Manager, wherein we have something called as a ERM templates, Azure Resource Manager template, wherein this template uses the JSON programming language. Okay. Where you can declare whatever you want to deploy the services in your infrastructure. We have a separate module, ARM template. We will discuss more over there. Okay, so where you'll be declaring your syntax, what template is used to state, what content requirements. Anything you want to deploy, you can write in a template as well, so that in one shot you can deploy the services. And this can be repeatedly used when you have such a requirements. Okay, there is something called as a resource provider. Okay, so now I said create a VM, and I said create a network, I said create a storage. For each type of service, there is a resource provider, means which provides a provision or control your resources, right? So if I say delete this, okay, the resource provider is going to delete this virtual machine. If you say deploy this virtual machine, resource provider deploys the compute service or the virtual machine. Okay, so here resource provider is also a service that supplies the resources you can deploy and manage to the resource manager. Any services you're trying to create, delete, or manage, resource provider is the one who will be interacting to the resource manager to provision that. Once the resource manager, with the help of resource provider, the services will be deployed or managed. Okay. Any questions, any doubts so far? All right. So today we just hold on here. Today we start late because there were a couple of more guys should join. They have not joined. So tomorrow we will connect and we will proceed further the slide. Yeah. Any questions so far? Please let me know. We can discuss it.
Yeah, hi Ravi. Actually, I'm new to this class.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I have few doubts. Yeah, after the training, is there any resume preparation done by your side, and also the any job assistance, any job referrals, like that kind of things?
See, resume part, yes, we help you to build your resume. Okay. Job part,
Mm-hmm.
like anything opening which the institute gets, right? So they can help you out with that.
Fine. Okay, got it. Thank you.